So today we're going to complete in Mishnah 6, which we had three things in the Mishnah. I'll put it on the screen for you. So the first one was to make for yourself a teacher. And the second one was to acquire a friend. And the third statement by Yehoshua ben Prachya is Vehevei done as kol ha'adam lekafschus, to judge everyone favorably. So this, we briefly spoke about it last time in terms of the different levels of people, actually, that someone who was wicked, like known to be a real terrible person, and they always do things terribly, you don't have to judge them favorably. In fact, it was the opposite. We actually had that in this week's Torah reading with Lavan being in that category. But another angle, one very important angle of this statement, is that the wording is not just, you have to look at the Hebrew. It doesn't say judge every person. Literally, it's Hevedan es kol ha'adam, judge the person, the Adam. And the Svas Emes explains as judge the whole person. Don't just judge one action or two actions or even a few actions of a person. You have to look at the complete picture of an individual. And when you look at a complete person, you'll see every person has faults and every person has wonderful things about them. And therefore, don't just look at a person's faults, but look at all the good things about them. And we know in relationships, when we have a relationship with anyone, we know we people who we care about, we generally overlook their faults. And that's the idea, is to look at all the good things that the person brings to the table. And in that manner, you'll be able to overlook their faults. You'll be able to judge them favorably. When we do in the system of justice that we have, really, it's not so much judging the person, it's judging the action, right? That's how the court system works. But we, as in relationships, we don't have to judge that way, and Hashem does not judge that way. Another idea expressed is that, and Sfas Emes mentions this idea that we know that Hashem judges us like we judge others, and therefore we judge other people favorably, give them the benefit of the doubt, let something go. Hashem will do the same thing for us. Doesn't mean that we didn't do it. It just means that he'll be more merciful to us and treat us differently. There's a story of Baal Shem Tov, who he had his table. The Baal Shem Tov was a great person, and he invited some poor person who was an ignorant person to sit at the head of the table. And people are like, "What are you doing? Why's he doing at the head of the table?" He said, "Look, when I go up to heaven, I want to be at the head table also. So if I treat this person that way, then Hashem will also overlook my thing, the fact that I'm not so great. He'll still let me in there." Another aspect of this Mishnah, as we mentioned, we had the make a teacher, acquire a friend, and now is to judge everyone. So the Maharal looks at this as there are three different relationships. We have the teacher, who's theoretically above us, right, greater than us. The friend or the chavrusa, the study partner, they're our peers. They're on our level. And then you have judging someone favorably would be like someone who maybe is not the same as us, and we're still less accomplished as us, but we're still going to treat them favorably and not look at them disparagingly. So one of the ideas of judging favorably is that we have to be able to overlook things, even when we know someone did something wrong. You don't have to call everybody on everything they've done. Just ignore it. It'll be much better for our relationships. And in general, whether you're a teacher, a friend, or you even with your teacher, ignore some of the things they do that you don't like. And that way you'll be able to maintain the relationship. Rabbi Tversky brings down, also in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, in terms of judging favorably, the idea that everything's a mirror. The world is a mirror. That the way it works is that Hashem allows us to see our problems in other people. When we look at other people and we say, "Oh, that person's doing that person's doing that," he says that it's time to look at ourselves. When we see something negative in someone else, generally that's some negative attribute that we have, and we have to look at it. We may not be as obvious to us for sure, but we have to look at ourselves and examine, because we're seeing ourselves in other people. And interestingly, the flip side of that is that if you have if you know what your problems are, if you know what your negative is, then you're less likely to see it in someone else because you've already seen it and you already it's not something you pay attention to. It's like you ignore it for yourself, you ignore it for someone else as well. And finally, one idea the Sfas Emes also brings down is that there's a story of there was this certain rabbi, it was also a Hasidic Rebbe, his name was Rab Hirschber, he was a student of the Kotzker Rebbe, and he said, he asked his son, he says, look, if I told you that I was going to, that I violated Shabbos, would you believe me? He says, no, I wouldn't believe you. He says, if I told you that I lied, would you believe me? He said, yeah, I would, if you told me that, I believe you. You know, don't you do it all the time, but yeah, I probably would. So he says, you know why? The difference is because you would never consider violating Shabbos, so you don't believe that I would. But you might stretch the truth a little bit, and that's why you believe that I might do so also. We have a tendency to believe about other people things that we would do. If we would do something, let's say, dishonest, then we think someone else would also do that. If we would never do such a thing, we have a hard time believing how anybody could do such a thing. And just to round off, we had that a couple of weeks ago in the Parsha, in the story with when Eliezer went to find a wife for Yitzchak, and in the telling over of the story, he flipped things around, and he instead of saying that he gave Rivka the jewelry before he even knew who she was, he's according to at least Rashi's explanation, he actually switched it around and he told him, I asked her who she was, and then I gave her the jewelry. And the reason for that was because he knew that they would never believe that that he could have such faith that this is the right girl, that he would have given her the jewelry before even knowing her name and knowing which family she was from. And therefore, he couldn't tell it to them because they wouldn't believe it. Why wouldn't they believe it? Because they would never do such a thing, because they were crooks. Lavan and his father were crooks. They would never do anything like that. And they didn't trust anybody. So the concept is that we believe about other people things that we would do ourselves. And we have a hard time believing about other people, good or bad, things that we would never do ourselves. And that's a lesson of, in general, we have to look into ourselves more deeply. And when we look at other people, if we see ourselves in that, then we know it's time to work on ourselves to improve. Have a great day, everyone.